Welcome in to the Raiders Report. I am your stand-in host for today, Jeremy Chuggs, in for Mitchell Renz while he's still recovering. We've got a Raiders Report mailbag going on for you today. So this is all from our live show, actually on December 12th. So use the hashtag Raiders and make sure that you are sticking tuned to all of that. First, let's look at who do you want to play this week at quarterback? Oh, good question. Are we talking Raiders or are we talking Falcons? Because both of those, this could apply to both of those. We have the Raiders, who Aiden O'Connell miraculously is okay after getting carted off the field in an air cast. Desmond Ridder would be the other option, which that does not sound like fun. And then we have the Falcons, who are reeling right now. Kirk Cousins, 8 interceptions, 0 touchdowns over, I believe, his last 4 games. And they have a first-round pick, a top 10 pick in Michael Penix waiting in the wings. So I would say if you're the Raiders, if you want to win, the configuration you want is probably AOC versus Michael Penix. If you're looking to lose and still tank, you probably want Desmond Ridder and Kirk Cousins in this matchup. Good question, that. Prime LV, Raiders, which game worries you the most that the Raiders might win? Ooh, that is a good question, because coming up, the Raiders have some games that are, in most contexts, me saying these are very winnable games would be good news for Las Vegas. But in this terms, when you still have the number 1 overall pick, according to Tankathon, you don't want winnable games. And you're playing the Falcons, who are not very good. You're playing the Jaguars, who probably without Trevor Lawrence, not very good. Then you're playing the Saints, which might not have Derek Carr, which means they're not very good either. Last game of the season, you're playing the Chargers, and I don't know if they already have a playoff spot. Maybe they're playing all their backups. So, surprisingly, you have 4 winnable games for Las Vegas coming up in a period where you don't really want them to win, especially if you're looking for them to get that number 1 overall pick and get a quarterback in the draft. So it really does worry me that they do have 4 winnable games, unfortunately, which I hopefully we never say that again on the channel. Hopefully we never say, unfortunately, they have 4 winnable games coming up. But in this instance, yes, it is unfortunate that they have a ton of winnable games coming up. This is a great question, Cullen. I'm glad you whipped this one up. Would you be mad if the Raiders won another game? The mantra is just win, baby. Would you be mad if they just won, baby? Let me know down in the comment section. Yes or no. Would you be upset if the Raiders won another game this season? Let me know down in the comment section. Yeah, I of course would be a little upset about it. Like, obviously, it's a thing where in the moment, it feels good, right? In the moment, it feels great. And then the next day, you're going to regret it. That could probably be clipped and used for a lot of different instances, but it's the case for the Raiders. Like, if you win at the moment, you're like, hell yeah, the Raiders just won. Just win, baby. Silver and black, womb to the tomb. And then the very next day, you're like, shit, we don't have the number 1 pick. So, would I be upset? Yeah, I wouldn't be mad. I think I'm gonna pull an old cliche. I wouldn't be mad. I would be disappointed if the Raiders won another game. But whether you're mad, disappointed, however you're feeling about the team, I know all y'all watching this video are absolute real ones, because the Raiders, obviously, they're not in it this season. They're already out of the playoffs. But you're watching Raiders content still, which means you are an absolute real one. And if you want continued Raiders content throughout the entire year, it doesn't matter, through the offseason, through the draft, free agency, through the trade deadline, in the dog days of the summer, going into training camp, the preseason next year, we got you covered here on the Raiders Report. So hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications if you want the best Raiders content on the internet here at the Raiders Report. This one coming in from 888. He says, who is the most realistic next head coach for us not named Antonio Pierce? I think the number 1 target for the Raiders, if AP is no longer the head coach, would be Mike Vrabel. And if you're subscribed to the channel, Mitch has broken this down on multiple occasions of why Mike Vrabel might be the top candidate for this job. He has great connections with Tom Brady, who is involved with the organization right now. He's had success in former stops before, and he's a very well-respected coach in league circles. I think this is a guy who comes in and automatically brings that culture, brings that stuff that you kind of wanted with AP, right? You wanted a locker room guy, a former player who understands these guys and who also demands respect in the locker room. And I think Mike Vrabel is similar to that in AP. He's just got a little bit more skins on the wall. He's more experienced than AP. He was a defensive coordinator before being a head coach, and he has been a head coach before with his time in Tennessee. So he's a little bit more experienced than Antonio Pierce, but still kind of brings you the same stuff that you liked in Antonio Pierce and why you hired him in the first place. So if things don't work out with AP, I agree with Mitch. The number one name on the board should be Mike Vrabel. The only thing is, I think he might get a job this offseason. I think there's a couple openings in the NFL where he could look to fill those spots in coaching searches. And if the Raiders don't snag him up, if they don't move on from AP and get him, they might lose their chance at Mike Vrabel. I'm not saying they need to do that. I'm not saying I'm done with AP at all. But I am saying if you really want Mike Vrabel, the clock might be ticking, and you might have to make a move for him this offseason or risk losing him to another team. I'll answer some more questions from our live audience here on the Raiders Report. But first, got to show some love to our sponsors over at PrizePicks. It is daily fantasy sports made easy, folks. Get started today with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there with over 5 million active members. Make your holidays just a little bit brighter and your pockets just a little bit fuller with this app. I'm telling you right now, it is the best way to win real money this football season, but not only football. I'm also talking baseball, hockey, basketball, MMA, even e-gaming, whatever sport that you can think of. Hey, PrizePicks probably has you covered. And right now, you can win up to 200 times your money on PrizePicks this holiday season. And if you're wondering, hey, Jeremy, can you give me an example? Can you show me what a lineup looks like? Well, this is my lineup that I cooked up for Monday Night Football. Obviously, some uncertainty around who the quarterback's going to be for the Las Vegas Raiders while I'm filming this. So I'm just going to go with what I do know. And I know Brock Bowers is an absolute beast. So give me the more on 70.5 receiving yards. Bijan, give me the more on 83.5 rush yards. And Kirk, I'll go with the less on his passing yards. He's been struggling a lot lately. You can go with my picks or go against them. Just do it over on PrizePicks and join now because this holiday season, PrizePicks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during the holiday season because it's Picksmas here at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. So get started today with PrizePicks. Run your game. Just win 07. Will Kolton Miller be on the Raiders next season? This is another good question. Because as Mitch has outlined throughout this season, Kolton Miller doesn't have any really guaranteed money past this year on his contract. He could be looking for more money, and he's actually struggled mightily this season. He's been, at points over the past 5 years, the best guy on this offensive line, the anchor for this team. But he was struggling this offseason with injuries, and coming into the year, Kolton Miller just didn't seem like himself. He seemed like he had a little bit of rust. He seemed like, somebody who has lost a little bit of a step. I'm not saying Kolton Miller's bad. I still think he has some good years of football ahead of him. But is that with the Raiders? I'm not sure, because as I look at Kolton Miller and how this team is, maybe they try to move on from Kolton and they insert a Thayer Munford. Maybe they move on from Kolton Miller and they go ahead and, move somebody else to that left tackle spot. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I could see a world where Kolton Miller isn't on the Raiders next season. I think he's still really good. I still think he has some left in him, but I do think the Raiders and him are going to have to work out some of those contract details this offseason. This one coming in from Chuck. Should the Raiders select O-line or wide receiver after they take a quarterback? Well, hopefully this is true, Chuck. Hopefully this does happen where the Raiders do have to choose who they're going to select after they take a quarterback, because hopefully they do take a quarterback in the first round. But if I'm looking at who's left on your board after that, I think perfect having this question after that last one. Depending on what you have with Kolton Miller, I think that'll answer your question right there. If you don't have Kolton Miller anymore, you probably need to take an offensive lineman with that next pick. If you still have him, you might lean to wide receiver if there's a really good name on the board, because there's some good wide receivers in this class. Some guys who might fall down some draft boards a little bit. I know the kid out of Missouri, Luther Burden, was really highly touted at the beginning of the season. Dropped down just a little bit, so if he's sliding, maybe you get him with one of the first picks in the second round. But hopefully you can just take BPA, and it's either an offensive lineman or a wide receiver. But I would, you know what? Before I give you my answer in total, I want to hear from the folks at home. Let me know. If you had to pick one after the Raiders hopefully take a quarterback in this year's draft, would you go with offensive line or would you go with wide receiver? Let me know down in the comment section. Type OL for O-line, type WR for wide receiver. Let me know, who are you taking after a quarterback in this year's draft? Former offensive lineman. Got to go with offensive line. Got to go with offensive line. I love what they did with getting Jackson Powers Johnson. I think he is a really special talent. He's really good. I think you could probably continue to add along that offensive line, because if you're getting a rookie quarterback, look at what the Broncos have done with Bo Nix. He's been really good this year, and I'll eat crow. I'll say I thought he was going to be a much worse than he was this year. But part of the reason why he has had such a successful first year in the NFL is the offensive line has helped him out a ton. That team is bottom 10 in pressures and sacks allowed this year so far, and they have looked really good at protecting Bo Nix so far. So if you do have a rookie quarterback, if you can put a solid offensive line in front of him, if you can shore up the interior, maybe help out with the run game a little bit more as well, that'll work wonders for whoever that rookie quarterback is. So if it's up to me, I'm going offensive line because, hey, some of the best teams out there right now, you look at, especially in the NFC, the Lions, the Eagles. What do they have better than anybody else in that conference? It's the offensive line. The Lions have a great O-line in front of Jared Goff. The Eagles have a great offensive line in front of Jalen Hurts. So if you're able to build a strong front five, if you can win in the trenches, which I'm a former big boy, I absolutely love those guys in the trenches building from within. That's my biggest motto with team building is you got to get nasty up front. You got to have the big boys who can protect and who can move people. If they can do that for Las Vegas, I think that will spell very good things for whoever the quarterback is going to be for the Raiders next season. As a reminder, we will be live Monday Night Football. It's going to be Falcons against Raiders. There's actually a doubleheader for next Monday Night Football. So stay tuned. We will be live for that game. Mitch will be back. The prodigal son returns. Thank you so much, Mitch. We will be live, so stay tuned. Make sure you hit that sub button and stick around for more Raiders content all year long.